Hi, Eddie.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you for welcoming us in this beautiful place. We just arrived this morning. Actually, we are in Macau. It's my first time in Macau, and we are currently at Wynn Palace. Very close to the ferry terminal actually of Macau. So we just arrived, took a coffee, and here we are. Just before starting, I need to thank Richard Hemming, who introduced us in a previous episode. Eddie, you have a career in the wine industry that is super wide. You made a lot of different things, but can you start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. I guess first, thanks for having me, and thanks, Richard, for recommending me. I love Richard. He's a legend. Look, I'm pretty simple. I'm a winemaker. That is what I do, and that is what I get up and enjoy doing every day. I was born in Hong Kong. My father's Australian, my mother's Chinese, so I have a very cross-cultural upbringing, and certainly being based in Macau and traveling back to Australia a lot, I'm constantly connected with my roots from both sides of the world. I'm a dad. I'm hopefully a loving husband to my wife. I have two sons. My passion outside of wine and outside of my family is rugby. Rugby is a big part of who I am, and it's a sport that I really encourage a lot of people to play, because I think it's like the school of life.
Mm-hmm.
It teaches you a lot about character building. So I learned a lot of my life lessons through that. But I have several side hustles as well. I'm the chairman of the Wynn Signature Chinese Wine Awards. I'm very passionate about Chinese wines and the growth and the opportunities around the Chinese wine industry. Maybe it's the Chinese blood that's making me do this.
I have the same passion and no Chinese blood that I know of.
So that's one of my really important projects that I'm working on. Outside of that, I try and contribute as much to the wine community as much as I can, whether it's judging at the Canter World Wine Awards, some education, and even back in the day I used to have a television show called The Flying Winemaker, which is all about empowering people to drink not necessarily very good wine, but just get on the boat and get into that that journey that I embarked on 23 years ago about wine, and just start exploring. So I'm very passionate about that, and I'll continue to do that no matter what I do in my career.
Great. So you mentioned you're born in Hong Kong, started your life in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is an amazing place for gastronomy and definitely for the wine industry.
Yeah.
But when you are 10, 15 years old, it's not really the type of places that you go that much. So in our previous interviews, we encountered a lot of people who just growed in the vineyards or had family in the wine industry, and that's how they started to get into it. How for you did you start to get into the wine industry?
Well, actually, it was in Australia. In Hong Kong, I had zero access to wine. My family was pretty conservative in the sense that they didn't really spend much money on wine. My father drank more beer. My mum enjoys wine, but wouldn't be out in the shops choosing the next Chateau Latour, for example. It would be the cheapest one on the supermarket shelf. So my contact with wine started when I was in university in Brisbane, Australia. I was doing a business degree. It was about 3 weeks before graduating that degree. I was working at a fine dining restaurant, and I loved hospitality. I loved the food and the drinks culture. I loved the after parties after work with the team, and I've fully embraced the food side of it a lot. But the wine side was so intimidating to me. So I didn't know much about wine. And at a student budget, the wine that I drank was in a box. It came at a bag inside, and you pressed it, and you drank as much of it as you can. So I wasn't much of a connoisseur. But it was an evening on a Tuesday night at this really great restaurant, which sadly doesn't exist anymore, called Isis Brasserie. And it was about 3 weeks from graduating, final exams. I took the shift because I needed some extra cash. And it was myself and one other waiter, and then the sous chef, the head chef was day off, so sous chef and a few junior chefs, and then the owner. But that night was like the worst night ever in a restaurant. Everything that went wrong, and there was only one table. right? One table of 6, and these were politicians that came in. So their experience was so bad, they finished their main course. They're like, no dessert. We're going to leave the wine, just get the bill. We want to go home. So afterwards, the owner was like, well, cashing the money, not much to cash because they left so quickly and there's only one table. And he said, well, there's no tips as well. So the only thing I can offer you guys is your usual beer that you can have or drink the rest of the wine that they left on the table. And I thought, I'll take both. I'll drink the beer and then I'm going to drink the wine afterwards. But I knew nothing about the wine. So I thought, oh, whatever, must have been some wine that they chose. So he poured the wine. The owners gave me the wine. Next to me was the sous chef. And I didn't know anything about wine. I didn't swirl. I knew nothing. I really was like, this is just alcohol, right? And until the moment I put the wine in my mouth and tasted it, my brain just went completely silent. And the sensation that was happening in my mouth was so euphoric that I stopped and I turned to the chef next to me and I said, holy hell. Not exactly those words, I use a swear word. This is amazing. What is this? How can wine taste like this? Why does it taste so amazing? And the chef was like, oh, whatever, just drank the wine. Didn't really pay much attention. But to me, that memory really stood out. And I thought, okay, maybe it's just one of these things, very exciting. And then the next day you forget about it when you wake up. The next day I was still thinking about that wine and the taste and why, how could it be like this? And so I quickly jumped on the internet. And back then was still dial-up internet, right? So it was like very slow internet, looking up wine, and the information on the World Wide Web was still quite limited. But I found out that, wow, there's some educational courses around the wine. So I said, okay, you can learn more about wine. I thought maybe it's something you can do as a career after my business degree. And I first spoke to my parents and said, there's a wine industry. My parents were like, forget the wine industry, get a job at an internship in a bank, go get a corporate job, get a safe pay, and build a career. And then the more they said that, the more I was like, I want to learn more about wine. And I completely went the opposite way. And so I just kept digging and digging, digging, digging. And then I realized there was a winemaking degree, like a oenology degree and viticulture degree as a postgraduate. So I thought, okay, this is a gamble, but let me try and look into it, apply for it. And I finished my business degree, graduated. I told my parents this is what I'm doing. They didn't push back because I was like so adamant that that's what I wanted to do. And I got accepted into wine science and viticulture as a postgrad student. And I've never looked back since. And so for me, that one glass of wine, and I can tell you that glass of wine now, it was a wine from Alsace. Okay. It wasn't an expensive wine. It was a Pinot Blanc from a producer called Frederic Blanc. The wine brand is, a Paul Blanc, but the winemaker was Frederic Blanc. But Paul Blanc's a very established Alsatian wine. And that wine, that moment, changed my life. It was just like this light bulb moment that the light bulb never turned off. More often than not, these light bulb moments that turned off the next day when you wake up and you go, okay, move on. But it never switched off. And so I thought the only way to do it was to get involved and become a winemaker, learn every detail from vine all the way to glass, and start working in the industry from every angle I could. And I've never looked back. So, and that was, early 2003.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 23 years.
And so when you arrive in this degree, in this postgraduate degree, are you the only guy from business school going into this?
No, I wasn't. I was one of many sort of people who had changed careers. There are a lot of people in their 50s who are like having a second chance in their life.
Crisis.
Yeah. And so some people were scientists working in a blood laboratory. Others were like me, who had some experience in hospitality and restaurants. Others were already in the business from a different angle. Maybe they started in the retail shop, or they were a sommelier in a restaurant, like I said. So they then decided that they wanted to go down the production side. Well, others was just some very rich people who just had extra time.
Just why not? Yeah.
So just to say they have another tick.
Are you still in contact with the sous chef from this time?
No.
You
know what? It's funny because that chef didn't last very long. He kind of, I think after that summer, because in Australia, the school year is from January to December. So after that summer when I graduated, I kind of left the job as well, and then took on some other opportunities and traveled a bit as well. So I lost contact with him, but I'm in touch with the owner of that restaurant, who forever and a day I feel indebted to, because he's the one that poured the wine for us. He knows a lot about wine. He's really, really sharp, that guy. Guy called Simon Hill, and he still owns restaurants in Brisbane. And I always joke with him. So he's the guy that started my passion and career for wine. Yeah.
So you arrive in this postgraduate degree. So it's like a 1-2 year, something like that. You kind of learn the ropes of winemaking. I guess a lot of science, a lot of actually. I think people don't realize that a lot of it is actually chemicals, reactions, and like learning how to really establish wine. What do you do just after that? You go for
actually I took a different approach, because I've been studying business degree for 3 years straight as a full-time student. And the last thing I wanted to do was to keep studying. And I thought, if I just do that, it's just gonna just buried in books. I would just lose the interest and the passion for it. So I took the opportunity to take a job with a small boutique winery in Victoria, just outside Melbourne, called Shadowfax Winery, on a part-time basis and also seasonal basis. So I said to them, look, I'll do everything and anything, provided I can still continue my studies. So things like the cellar door, so I was doing the tasting room. They had a weekend restaurant, so I was helping in the restaurant. And then during the week, they had some vineyard work. So whether it was driving the tractor, just mowing the lawn in the middle, or putting the nets on, or during the harvest, helping out in the vineyard. And then in the winery, when we're bottling the wines, they need people to put the bottles in the machine. I just did everything and anything. And I did all the work that, no one wants to do, because it's boring. It takes a long time. It's the same job for 8 hours. But it was a test for me as well, because I thought, if I can do that work and still finish the day going, wow, I'm still so into this, I'm so passionate about it, this industry is for me. So I took that approach and made sure that I had real life experience in parallel to the book learning experience, which for me helped with the networking of the industry, getting stuff on the CV. So when I graduated, getting a job was going to be much easier. And getting a full 360 experience in a smaller winery was very important, because if you go and work in a really big winery, you do one very small job and that's all they do, right? Everything else is like a corporate style, where you're in this box and that's all you focus on and don't touch anything else. Whereas in this job, I was able to see everything, from the sales side, the guest experience side, to running a wine club, to bottling bottles, to talking to the winemaker live, and asking questions.
I think it's one of the best advice for people starting their career. Unless you know that you absolutely want to work in corporate stuff, finance and everything, of course you need to follow a clear path. But otherwise, starting your career in a small structure when you can just do everything, and be like the small guy, the 21, 22-year-old guy who just is useful to everyone and who everyone's like, and learning everything is the perfect advice for
I agree, and that's certainly the path that I chose. And the first winemaker that I worked under, called Matt Harrop, he just said, especially in the winery, if someone asks you to do it, just do it. Obviously have common sense, because wineries can be dangerous, but take the experience. If it's a new piece of machinery and they ask you to work the machinery, just try it.
Yeah.
If there's a new grape variety that you can have a chance to work with, just try and make that wine with that grape variety. So take as much of an open mind as possible, because that's the only way that you can shape your own philosophy and your own direction, when it comes down to it later in life.
So you have this first experience, you graduate from this degree.
Yep.
Do you start your entrepreneurship journey just after that, like the Flying Winemaker and stuff, or you take
so it took a little bit more time. So my journey was not that direct to starting my own business. I always knew that I would start something. What? I don't know. And I always had the impression that you always had to have heaps of money to start a business. And I've learned that you could start a business with zero. You just need to start with business with good vision and, great ideas that everyone else gets on board with. Then the money will come with it. So after the intern period, and also the study period, I then took the opportunities to move around to different vineyards and regions in Australia. So after moving from Victoria, I then moved to South Australia and worked in the Clare Valley. And I chose the Clare Valley because I was passionate about Riesling. I love aromatic whites. I love acidity in wines. And so I took a job at a huge winery that had just started, but with some very established winemakers who were very well respected. So I thought, okay, part of this is also getting the right names in the CV. So the next job, people take you seriously. If you go from a nothing, no name winery to go to the next job, it's more difficult. So I took that approach where I needed to learn, have a good name on the CV, and use it for the next stepping stone. So from Clare Valley, then I went back to Victoria in 2007, and I was working for another winery called Clyde Park, which is a very small independent winery in Victoria, and I wanted to learn about Pinot and Chardonnay at that time. And then 2008, then I moved to the Yarra Valley, working for a company called Giant Steps and Innocent Bystander, which for me was one of the real modern wine brands of Australia. It was really progressive in terms of their winemaking techniques. They had the brand new winery, which is like state-of-the-art, gravity-fed winery. So I thought, wow, what a great opportunity. And their culture and the company and the winemaker that I was working with then, Steve Flamsteed, who's a great friend of mine now, but also a huge mentor of mine, really shaped me as not only as a winemaker, but as a person. And I really, truly owe a lot to him. And then in 2008, life happened and my dad got sick and had cancer and passed away that same year. And if he hadn't got sick, I probably would have just stayed in the Yarra Valley, stayed with Giant Steps and had a sort of longer term job with them. But it forced me to come back to Hong Kong because my dad was in hospital actually in the Philippines, and then we moved him back to Hong Kong to have better medical care. And he didn't want to go back to Australia because he felt with his friends and his real home was Hong Kong after moving there since 1972. So he saw out the rest of his life in Hong Kong. And after that, I was really lost. I wasn't sure whether I'd go back to the job in Australia or not. And I kind of, at that point, thought, okay, I'm halfway to Europe now. Let's see if I can get a job in Europe. And then I was still just with a backpack. And so after my dad died, all the matters were settled. I started emailing around to different wine producers in Europe. And there was one wine producer that really stood out for me and still remains probably one of the greatest winemaking experiences I've ever had in my life. Was a producer in Barola called Vietti.
Okay.
I came across Vietti when I was doing some part-time work in a wine shop in Melbourne when I was still studying. And the wines were so aspirational. The labels looked cool. The wine was Nebbiolo. It was just the cheap one that I could afford, even for $40 Australian back then, was so delicious. And it was really like what inspired me. It's like, wow, this could taste so good. Even it's the cheap entry level one. I wonder what the next one tastes like in the next level. So I was completely in awe of this winery. So I kept that in the back of my mind. And I thought, okay, I'm going to email them and see if they reply. So the email chain started, I believe, just after Harvest 2008, which is in May. First email. Dear Luca, I'm a winemaker based in Australia. I love your wines. I'm planning to come through Europe. And I'd love to do a stage with you as a winemaking intern. No reply.
People reply to emails.
2 weeks later. Dear Luca, just following up my reply. I really want to come. I find your wines very aspirational. You've really inspired me to learn more. Can I come and, even for free? I'm happy to work for free. Just, give me a bed somewhere or put me in a shed or something just so I can be around. No reply. And this went on for maybe 3 months, but I was so persistent. I was like, I'm not going to let go of this. And I thought I'm going to call. And then obviously, oh, he's not here. You call back later. And back then the mobile phones were not that sophisticated. It was still 2008, right? So at that point was the phones were not smartphones, right? Even Facebook hadn't even started yet, or just started Facebook, right? And eventually, I think it must have been about 3 weeks after my dad died, I replied, tried to get a reply again. Finally, he replied, "Fine, come. We pay you 600 euros. We give you accommodation. Arrive anytime from August." And I was like, my face just went white, and I was just so happy. I was in tears. I thought, wow, this persistence. And maybe he probably thinks I was so annoying that his reply was like, "Stop emailing me, stop calling me, just come," because you really, really want the job. And so he offered me the work, and to this day, it was the greatest experience ever. Vietti to me is obviously the top 50 wineries of the world. Outside of the big names in France, and certainly one of the top wineries in Barolo. And so I went there and embarked on the journey there, and kind of embraced that opportunity. Finished the harvest, went back to Hong Kong, stopped in Hong Kong. And 2008, 2009 was when the taxes were being abolished in Hong Kong, and the industry for wine was really exploding. And my Chinese family was, "Oh, come back to Hong Kong. You're a winemaker now. You should see what's happening in Hong Kong, and get some commercial experience in the big sort of commercial side." And I thought, no, I'm a winemaker. I'll go back to Australia, and then I'll keep doing my Australian harvest, and hope. In fact, Vietti had invited me to go back again, so I thought I'll do both and just keep doing this for a few years. Because I was thinking that's the dream job, harvest in Australia, harvest in Italy, travel in between, what else could you want, and drinking Barolo on your days off. But anyway, stopped in Hong Kong. The taxes all got abolished. I met a few people in Hong Kong just to catch up, to get the lay of the land. I met with Paolo Pong, who was the owner of Altair. I met with Deborah Myberg, Master of Wine. I met a number of people who were kind of at the top of the influencing category of people in Hong Kong. And then eventually I met this guy called Simon Tam, who then had a company called Independent Wine Center, which was a consultancy business for wine regions and wine businesses looking to enter the Asian market. And Simon Tam was an Australian Chinese guy who had been bridging the gap for wine conglomerates, for example, Wines of Portugal, Wine Growers New Zealand, on bringing them into Asia and bringing them particularly into Hong Kong. And at the time he was like, "Oh, I need some consultants to help out on some projects." I thought, wow, that's really cool. That's, exposure to new regions, new wines, a different angle, understand the convention side, understand the commercial side. So I'll take on the opportunity. So he said, "I'll give you the job, but at the same time, I also need you to teach some classes," because he has a small wine school. And I want the classes not to be WSCT format, but I want the classes to be more down to earth, more real life experience, more from the winemaker's mouth as opposed from the textbooks. So I thought, wow, this is amazing. Teaching, education, commercial side, connecting with international wine brands and wine conglomerates, and bringing them to Asia. And I thought, okay, I'm going to learn a lot from this. So I did that for 12 months, learned a lot, really loved the experience. And at the same time, during this period of time, the story gets more crazy, is that someone from Canada calls me up and says, "Hi, I heard there's a winemaker from Hong Kong, based in Hong Kong right now, and we're interested to put a winery in Hong Kong, an urban winery in Hong Kong." And I thought, this is going to be a prank call. This is definitely not going to happen. Urban winery in Hong Kong, sure, but where's the grapes coming from? And they said, come visit yourself. Right now, we've just set up in Ap Lei Chau, which is in the back side of Aberdeen, an urban winery, which is very basic right now, but we need to take it up another level. And we're also looking for a winemaker who can take it up another level as well, with a bit more open-mindedness. And I said, okay, so winery in Hong Kong, so the grapes from Hong Kong. She goes, no, the grapes not from Hong Kong. Grapes from anywhere in the world you want. I was like, what? It can't be true. Grapes from anywhere in the world you want. And she goes, oh, okay, let me explain to you a bit. Okay, so there's a technology now with liquid nitrogen or blast freezing that we can freeze the grapes in their home region and then ship them to Hong Kong in a reefer container. And my mind was just going, I was like, what is going on here? And she goes, yeah, you can do this. And I said, okay, let me research a bit. So I went in, did some research, and I was like, wow, they do this with all fruits, strawberries, blueberries, peas. They even do it for sashimi high-grade tuna. When it comes off the boat, it's blast frozen, liquid nitrogen, boom. It's frozen at the freshest state. I thought, wow, this could actually really work. Because if you freeze grapes in a normal condition, where it slowly freezes, like on the vine in Canada or in Germany when they make ice wine, the molecules break up very differently, and the sugar and the water splits, and also the tannins and all the skins and the polyphenols also split. Whereas this just locks it in one like a time capsule. And I thought, wow, if we can do that and retain everything that's in the grape from the vineyard and bring this to Hong Kong and make it in Hong Kong, it would be epic.
I love Hong Kong for that. You just meet people that are like, yeah, why not? Let's do it.
She goes, the winery is on the 3rd floor of an industrial building and your view is Lama Island. And I thought, this is too good to be true. So I went there. I bought the dream, signed the contract, finished with Simon Tam, went back to Australia to pack up my stuff, moved to Hong Kong. And the first job was to then start sourcing grapes from different countries. So we were sourcing from Bordeaux, there was sourcing from Tuscany, there was sourcing from Washington State, there was sourcing from New Zealand, there was sourcing from Australia. And so in one winery, I was making wines from 5 regions, 5 countries.
Yeah.
It was mind-blowing. Nowhere else in the world I don't think anywhere else in the world has done that. And so people are like, oh, you're the Flying Winemaker, you're the Flying Winemaker. And I was like, oh.
That's a good
Maybe
name.
Michel Roland is not the Flying Winemaker anymore. Maybe I'm the Flying Winemaker. So I kind of joked with the idea. But we started making the wines, and the wines were doing very well. We won awards. We won good medals. Obviously, we weren't winning super world-class medals, but we were getting good, credible awards for the wines.
You were the best winery of Hong Kong.
Yes, number 1, first. And back then, when it opened, it was only in first, but then a competitor came up.
Hong Kong.
Which, as you know, was became more competition, which made it more complex. But they were also making really good wines. But sadly, they closed down, and then obviously the one that I was working at, which is called the 8th Estate, stayed open for a few years longer. So that business went from like 2008 to 2012. So I was with them for that duration. And so during that time, I'd already conceptualized the Flying Winemaker. I decided that this was a brand that I thought was marketable and saleable. And from then, it evolved to that business. And to answer your question, which is a very long answer to your question, is the entrepreneurial journey really started then. And it gave me the confidence. It gave me a unique selling point, which I think is really important for entrepreneurs, to have a very unique selling point that can't be copied from someone else. And my story then was impossible to copy. And so I took that on and embraced it and made something of it. And from that, it became a wine bar in Lan Kwai Fong. It became obviously the wine brand that I have today, the Flying Winemaker. It became a television show for Netflix and Discovery Channel and broadcasted to 350 million viewers before everyone started having the craze for YouTube, which 350 million is nothing now compared to what's really out there these days. It was on the airlines, and it evolved to education. It evolved to big festivals. We still own the largest rosé festival in Asia, Rosé Revolution, which we only host once a year now in Macau with one of the other resorts. And, it's been a huge journey and a huge learning experience, but it gave me lots of different ways to connect with new wine lovers, especially the growing base of wine lovers from Asia, because it wasn't just Hong Kong that we did. We worked regionally. And I say regionally from Asia Pacific, it's Australia all the way through to Beijing. We worked far and wide as much as possible. But going through all that, and then we land at COVID, all these events particularly were cut, right? So I went back to what was really important to me was making wine. And so I really focus now all my efforts on making wine and supporting our distribution of wines is kind of like my core job. It's gone full circle, I guess, in that regard.
It's very interesting when you mention this path to the entrepreneurial journey, because when you look at your career in the wine industry, it started like 23, 24 years ago, something like that. But actually, it seems like you were just hopping from place to place or from job to job, like staying a few years, just discovering, like kind of sharpening your knife along the way. And then at some point, you had like a fire that started to take, and then it accelerated super quickly. Because when I look at like what you said, the job in Hong Kong to make wine must have been like what, 2015, something like that.
2009, end of 2009,
Okay.
2010.
So, but it's just been like 10 years, 15 years, and like in 15 years, you've built like plenty of different things, and like it just started.
Yeah. I mean, everything was always centered around wine, right? For me, is my vision in wine for life is to make sure that we retain the integrity and we embrace wine on a global capacity, but also on a level that it encourages people to appreciate it and to hopefully one day give more people that opportunity that I had, that one wine that changed my life. Right? If I can light that fire for someone, even if it's just one person, my job is done on this planet. If I can give that same experience, that same enthusiasm, same passion that when I woke up was like, wow, that is it, then I feel like my job is done.
Let's dig into a few things that you mentioned.
Yeah, sure.
You mentioned rosé revolution. For me, it's a very interesting topic because it really targets the local audience as well, the Chinese consumer audience. And I guess for people listening to this podcast, it's very interesting to like understand the shift in wine consumption in Asia. So how did you start Rosé Revolution? What do you witness as like consumption habits? Like, can you walk us a bit through this market and this environment?
Yeah, look, rosé is a very interesting category. It's love-hate category.
For me, it's overlooked category.
Yeah, it's very overlooked. It has immense potential in Asia because of the lifestyle, the way people dine. And, obviously it's a refreshing style of drink that complements a lot of the cuisine. A lot of people still in the Western world assimilate rosé to, a very specific season, a very specific location.
Summer, close to the sea.
Exactly.
Ice cubes in it.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly. And cheap.
Yeah.
And cheap. But I think there's a lot more there and it's a beverage category more than just a wine category. Because it can be utilized in so many different ways, right? And in so many different occasions. So I feel that the communication obviously is lost behind a lot of the traditional wine categories and wine segments, from sparkling wine to red and white, and even now falling behind, with sweet wines potentially as well. But it's a category that I've always found that it's an easy one to get people who don't drink wine to drink at least some wine, right? Even if they're not a wine drinker, or I'm not a connoisseur. A lot of people say in Asia, "Oh, I don't know how to drink wine." Actually, no one knows. No one knows. Everyone drinks the same, right? It goes in your mouth, you swallow it, hits your tongue, and you get a taste, and that's it. How you interpret it is up to you. And obviously, as professionals, we've built up a vocabulary around it, but rosé doesn't need to go through that same pathway where you need to have a very high intellectual conversation about rosé. Rosé should be occasional based, should be lifestyle based, should be refreshing, right? It should give you, energy from that refreshment. And I believe in Asia there's the perception, obviously, that it's sweet. And as much as people often say that Asian people prefer sweeter profile wines, that's not true. And if it was perceived more as a dry style, I think, or more recognized as a dry style, then they'd probably embrace it more. So I think the connotation of it being sweet and girly already puts it in a very small bucket, right? It's become so famous in America that you see the guys with the biggest beards, tattoos everywhere, sipping rosé. and it's super cool. Guys in LA, the super rock star guys, they're drinking rosé over drinking craft beer, for example. In I think in one stage of these last few years, that rosé consumption was above craft beer. I don't know the exact data point, but there was a point where rosé was way cooler than craft beer, which to me was mind blowing. But I think that's coming. I think that's coming in Asia, and people are starting to really unpack more in terms of the rosé category. Even like in the natural wine segment, where obviously the younger, more hip consumers of the wine are embracing skin contact white wines, right? And it's slightly pinked. That's somewhat of a rosé style. It could be Pinot Grigio with skin contact, or Pinot Gris with skin contact, which is slightly pink. So it's slowly moving that way. I think there's a lot more exploration and a lot more work to be done. And it needs to be supported by the trade as well as a category that has immense opportunity.
For me, one of the rosé discoveries I had recently, I talk about it sometimes in this podcast, but it was Tavel.
Yeah.
And like for me, it's a region that is so overlooked and that is underpriced. The quality is really nice. It's just like 600 hectares, so it's kind of small wine region, and the profiles are amazing because it has more skin contact, so it's a bit deeper. You have very different wine profiles depending on like the techniques, the producers, stuff. You have a real winemaking behind, and I guess with Asian cuisine, it would be a nice match. And every time I'm in a Asian restaurant and something, I'm like, like Tavel would have been a good value added in this. And I don't know why it's not that recognized. I guess they've been a bit surpassed by all the big brands from Provence and the light rosé category. But I really think that the deeper color rosé, like all these wines, really have a place.
100%. And there are amazing examples, not only from Tavel, of this style from Spain and Portugal as well. People are a bit too quick to jump to a decision that thinking the darker the rosé, the sweeter it's going to be. That's also the perception. So the lighter it is, the drier it is. And that's completely wrong. It's just, it's the winemaking technique or the residual sugar they put in or whatever it might be. But these darker style rosés, not only the varietal mix that they use, but also the depth and the complexity and the richness of these wines complement, flavors like Cantonese style barbecue incredibly. Like when you go to a Cantonese style restaurant and you've got the char siu,
100%.
You've got the roast goose, you've got the duck and even the chicken with the ginger. That plate is Tavel heaven. Right? People talk about these things with Pinot Noir and Beaujolais or whatever, but actually I would prefer an icy cold Tavel to pair with this stuff.
Exactly.
And that is just like match made in heaven.
For me, it's either like Riesling or a Tavel. I think it would be it's the perfect match. So Rosé Revolution is a part of the thing you're doing more into like Asian consumption of wine. But you've also focused a lot on China production of wine. You've been one of the first people to like really dig into what is happening in Chinese wines. You have done a guide, like few edition of guide as well. Can you tell us a bit more about how did you find out about Chinese wines and like what's your journey in it?
My exploration into Chinese wines started when I was filming the Flying Winemaker TV series. So when we were commissioned by ABC Australia and Discovery Channel for the show, we said that we wanted to focus on unexplored wine regions of the world. So not just going to Burgundy and standing outside La Tâche Vineyard and doing a peace sign. We wanted to go to India. We wanted to go to Japan, Indonesia, Taiwan, and China, of course, was a huge one that was growing. Not only because of their appetite for international wines, but the fact that there's a huge history there in China of wine production that people don't know about. That when I started researching and going through some of the information about the Chinese wine industry and its legacy and its connection to the Silk Road, which goes back thousands of years, and people were crossing the border from Kazakhstan into China, they're bringing grape cuttings. There's so much history there. So I found it fascinating. And so in 2013 and 14, when we were filming the Flying Winemaker series, we went to Ningxia, we went to Shandong, and it was just at the cusp of this really unique time where Ningxia started getting a lot of investment from the government to support the wine industry because they felt it was a great way to stimulate the economy for that region. Shandong at the same time was really recognized for a lot of these replica chateaus. Like you would go somewhere and be like, oh, wow, that's Latour. That's Margaux.
So
amazing.
funny,
But at the same time, behind all that, there's a long legacy of winemaking in that region as well, which was fascinating. And most of the wines were all being consumed in China. At that stage, their production quality was probably not at the international standard, but there were some diamonds in the rough that were starting to really catch my eye. And so that was 2013, and Ningxia was where it really happened. And I kind of thought, 10 years from now, and the speed that these guys are embracing and learning, and Chinese people love to learn. They learn fast, and when they learn, they execute even faster. And I thought, if they're doing this in this short amount of time, what's going to happen in the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years? And it just kept growing and growing. More producers were popping up out of nowhere. Chinese people started becoming very wealthy. So the wealthy people started investing in vineyards, buying their own their own chateau, building their own chateau style places. Many of it was like a side job for these very wealthy business people, or there were government connections. And I thought this level of investment is just unheard of. It's just insane how fast it's growing. So I thought someone's got to document it. So we did that with the TV show, but someone's got to capture and give these winemakers feedback. And feedback's very important for winemakers because I embrace feedback as a winemaker myself to improve my wines. And I need black and white feedback. I don't need a feedback from a sponsored partner who's going to give me good feedback.
Yeah, and 99 out of 100.
Yeah. So we wanted to embrace the transparency, the technical elements, but also internationally recognized feedback, so that people in China who are making wines would go, wow, these guys have a lot of experience. They've been tasting wines from all around the world. They're giving us these insights. And these insights are incredibly valuable for them to improve. And the improvement is not just take their notes and start work the next day. Its improvement is long-term improvement. So you need to build a bit of a catalog of reference points.
Yeah, and benchmarks.
Benchmarks, exactly. And so I thought, okay, the review guide, the Asian Wine Review, was a good way of doing that. And it was very early in the days, and I kind of funded it with very little investment and just trying to do it as a passion project, which was good. And it's difficult because when we first started it, people weren't taking the Asian wines that seriously outside of Asia. But I kept on going with that. So we produced 3 editions, and we were about to go in the 4th edition of the Asian Wine Review 2020. And obviously pandemic happened. We couldn't go there and review the wines and so forth. So I put that on ice, and sadly it's kind of been packed away onto the side for a bit. But during that time, I conceptualized what now is the Wymn Signature Chinese Wine Awards. And I presented that as an idea to Wymn, where we're filming and recording today, as a platform for them to expand their portfolio of gastronomic offerings, to get more people to appreciate what's really happening in China and take the message to the international audience and take it around the world. And so in 2022, Wymn invested into the IP, appointed me as the chairman of the Chinese Wine Awards, and we launched the first edition in 2023. And in the first edition, we became the largest Chinese wine platform in the world. So bigger than any of those ones in China, and most certainly bigger of any of the major competitions in the international circuit. So we have the highest number of references in terms of SKUs, but also highest number of references from regions, and also the highest volume of wineries from China. So it's now become this ecosystem as the go-to source of truth, which is off the mainland in an independent location that produces these awards and celebrates the best of Chinese wines and takes that to a global audience. And that's been a huge project and something that I've been very passionate about. And I joked at the start, it's a side hustle, but actually it's not. It's become so ingrained into what I do, and I'm so enthusiastic about the next 10 years that I feel that, now is the time to double down again and go even faster and harder, because the world has Chinese restaurants everywhere. And my goal is to have every single one of these Chinese restaurants in the world not only selling Qingdao beer,
exactly,
but selling a wine from China. And that to me is when my job is done. When that is done, then I can hand over the mantelpiece and someone else can carry it on for the next phase. But there's places all over the world with Chinatowns, whether you're in Paris or London, New York, Sydney. There's Chinatowns in Singapore and huge Chinese communities all over the world that would love a taste of home. And if we can do that and give that to them, then again, I feel really honored and very proud to have contributed, maybe in one big step, but hopefully it lasts a lifetime.
Yeah, for us, it's like when we arrived in Hong Kong, so we decided to focus a lot more on the winemaker show and what we are doing in the wine industry. And we're like, okay, we are transitioning this to more professional stuff. And so you said at the beginning, what are the things that can't be copied? And we're like, so basically, what are our unfair advantages? Like, what makes us special? And one of the things was like, we have access to Chinese wines, and we can go discover them, and we can really have this first-hand experience of the Chinese wines. And we found it very passionating. So we've only been to Shandong 2 days. We plan to explore other wine regions soon.
Do it. But it's a lot to explore, and not only is it beautiful,
it's just something.
It's beautiful. It's raw still.
Yeah.
It's at this beautiful transition stage where there's huge, beautiful wineries, and then there's like some really old school garagey style things happening in the background. And the viticulture is like you've never seen anywhere in the world before.
Yeah.
You can't copy Chinese viticulture. It's so complicated. It's so manually intensive. But the quality that's improving on a day-to-day basis is just mind-blowing.
What is the background of running such an award? Like, how do you organize? So basically, you send an email to or WeChat to every estate in China saying we are hosting this award. Send samples, and then on the other side, you have like judges. How do you select people? How do you like organize this?
Look, there's many pieces to this puzzle. I think if we wind it all back first, before doing any of those operational and logistic things, it's first getting the vision right and the message, because it's a journey that it's got to be long-term focused. It's a journey that needs to be at the highest level of integrity, no compromises. So no one can sponsor and buy an award, for example, or no one can manipulate the awards. So building that trust is really important. And to do that, I had to go with my other colleague, Danielle, to all the regions, meet all the winemakers. And there's hundreds and hundreds of wineries, hundreds of winemakers, hundreds of government officials, from the state government to the provincial government to the very local village government. We need to talk to every single one of these guys, sit around the table, explain what we're doing, why we're doing it, take the questions from them. So, what's the difference between you and, the other big competitions around the world? Why don't we just join that? And, we're more, they've been going for 30, 40 years. It's easier for us to join that. Why join you? Right. And also at the same time, it's like, when you're an integrated resort, your business is not in the wine industry. Why should we trust you to do the right thing by us?
Which are legitimate questions.
Absolutely. And these were things that, we had to deal with one by one, winemaker by winemaker, government official by government official, village chief by village chief. And I said, we have to build your trust, and we will show you through the integrity of the awards that what comes out with the results is going to be uncompromising, feedback orientated, but at an international standard. And so we set that up as a mandate, as a strategy, that those were the key pillars. And to have an international and highly regarded with a very, very strong reputation is to have world-class judges. Don't compromise on the judge selection. The judge selection strategy needs to be judges with a voice, judges who matter in the world of wine, judges who have both technical and also communication skills. So whether they're winemakers or whether they're master of wines or master sommeliers or whether they're a buyer for one of the biggest wine companies in the world, they need to have that level of impact and influence so that these people who are really moving and shaking the world of wine are getting first-hand knowledge and they're transcending and cascading the information down through their networks and their industry contacts and their businesses as well. So that's really, really important. So judges selection, to be able to go to the wineries and all the people around China and say, look, this is the set of judges that are going to lead this. And they're going to be the ones helping you get the right results, but at the same time communicating to their audiences. Once we've done that, we also made a very important decision to say to the wineries, we don't charge.
Okay.
We don't charge 1 single cent for anything. You send your wine, you fill out the form, you can enter. This is a fair playing field. If your wine's good enough, you'll win. No compromise, no compromise of the integrity, no compromise of the judging standards. Obviously, everything's judged blind. We have a really good chief of stewards, guy called Chris Ashton, who's the owner of the IWC Global Wine Awards. And he's in the background helping with the flighting, categorizing, and segmenting the judges between each of the panels. And so there's a lot of technical things happening in the background as well. Whilst at the same time, we need to continue to build trust. One of the other things we also say that, even though they don't pay entry fees, we get the best judges in the world, we also bring in an independent auditor from a big company like PwC, which is like an audit firm. They come in and check all the results. They check, this judge said 95 points. They check the system. They check the paper. They go check the whole trail. So nothing changes. And so the integrity for that even goes up even higher. And it's very important for Wymn to have that level of integrity, because any sort of bad PR around the compromising of results would just throw the competition out the window. So Wymn obviously has multiple facets to the business, and so they really, really, really mandate a very high level of governance when it comes to the standard of the awards. And that's my job, to make sure that governance standard is at the highest level ever.
It's fascinating. I guess the background of wine awards is really something big. You can find different level, of course, of it, and integrity is like when you guide consumers to wines. When you say that this one is better than the other, then you need to have this level of integrity. Otherwise, it's just doesn't make sense.
100%.
For
100%
for wineries and for people. We haven't talked actually about your wine.
The real job, the day job.
We've talked about a lot of things, but not your wine. So it turns out you're also doing wine in Australia?
Yep. So I have my own fine wine Négociant Élevé brand called EJ McDougall, the one there. And that is a wine production that really took 20 years to 23 years, I would say, like my entire career, to gain the confidence and the level of understanding of what I wanted to do before I launched it. So I launched it. I started making the wine for this new series in 2023, and then we released our first collection in 2025. And it's a top-end collection of wines which is got the goal of solving a problem. And the problem that I'm trying to solve with this collection of wines in this stage now is the perception and the optics of Australian wine in the world of fine wine. I spend a lot of time in the trade, in the market. I listen a lot. And the perception of Australian fine wines is not great. There's a couple of hero wines that are quite big in terms of its corporate status. But there are a lot of wines made in Australia which are really at a very high standard, which rival some of the best in the world, that are being dismissed or not presented very well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm taking this legacy of mine to help solve the problem for the wider Australian community of improving the perception of what Australia can do and showcase what genuine terroir from flagship regions can produce, and showcase, not only the terroir, but what old vines can produce, and what the world can enjoy in the years to come when it comes to fine wines, because they need to be able to cellar.
Mm-hmm.
So wines that we're producing are not just for now, but they're for the next 20, 30 years in the cellar. So that's really important to me. They need to be aspirational. They need to be truly Australian. I'm very serious about this. They really need to have an Australian thumbprint on it, but serious, sophisticated, eloquent, respectful, but truly Australian. And so we produce a wine from Margaret River, from Chardonnay. We produce a Grenache from a vineyard planted in 1939, which is single-site bush vine vineyard. We produce also a Shiraz from a plot next to that Grenache site, also planted in 1939. And then this year, in 2026, we start producing a Riesling from Tasmania. So the Grenache and Shiraz are produced in McLaren Vale in a very small sub-region called Blewett Springs. And then in Tasmania, we'll be sourcing from an area called Coal River Valley. So for me, these regions signifies what Australian fine wine can represent. It has longevity. The regions have an international footprint in terms of its perception in the world. And the production that we produce for these wines is tiny. Like the Chardonnay that's here is, it's only 2,400 bottles.
Yeah.
So we're not here to make heaps of money and make lots of bottles. The idea is to get that message right and to do something for the industry that I grew up with, that gave me so much in my lifetime, that I can contribute back with. And if I can bring everyone up in the industry together collectively, then again, I feel like my job's done in this world. Whether we produce more wine and the demand grows for it, that's great. There's obviously some commercial elements that we are making it sustainable as a business, but that's not the core goal. The core goal is to really champion what Australia can do to the international market. I know we can do that in Australia, and we're already doing that in Australia, but to convince the rest of the world, the top sommelier in New York, the top sommelier in London, even the top sommelier in Paris, who might want an international wine list, right? To convince them that the Chardonnay or the Grenache that we produce,
look for that.
it can be sitting side by side potentially with the Rayas that's from the Rhone Valley,
100%
in Grenache, or could be next to a Meursault in how about Margaret River Chardonnay. Could be compared side by side and go, wow, that is world standard. So that's really what I will continue to maintain that legacy with. And because we're a négociant élevé, we're not farmers by any sense. We're craftsmen in the sense that we make our wines, we blend them well, we understand the end output, we understand where the wines need to be shaped and where they're going. We work very closely with the growers to understand what they need to do on the 365 days a year, and we become custodians of that, in the future. And the people that we work with believe in our vision as well. The growers respect and trust us. And that's why it's taken me 23 years to get to that point. It took 23 years for me to build the trust with these people to go, okay, we give you some of that vineyard now, because we know you have the right intentions for it.
It's a bit like a Burgundy style model. Like you make the wine, but you need to have this connection with the growers.
First. And it's all about respect, communication, and like I said, the mission is much bigger than us.
I have a parallel for that. One of the region I love in France is Loire Valley, and actually especially the Chinon area. And I met a guy who has the exact same problems that the one you mentioned. He's trying to solve that, but for Loire Valley. And actually, Loire Valley and Chinon was mainly known in France for making like cheap wines, cheap accessible wines, like I don't know, between 5 and 10 euros a bottle maximum, and like things that you would drink every day, you know, on the table or whatever. And it's the type of wines that tend to disappear with the market and the conditions. And actually, this guy is like, so this area is known for that, but we can identify very specific terroirs that are stunning and on which we can make very fine wines and doing really nice things. And actually, so he started like 10 years ago, and he has seen different winemakers rally to his vision. And so now they are like a group of winemakers having kind of the same approach, so identifying place, making specific things, high quality wines. And they have like the same thing, the same problems that you mentioned. How do you convince people in New York that actually this wine is good? And so they are just like mimicking kind of what other wine regions are doing. So they are organizing a pole where they invite like their clients from all around the world to just share at the end of the harvest. They are doing like open chateaus to welcome people, make them discover. And I guess it's really a revolution in a lot of regions, and it's an opportunity for every winemaker is to identify a region with good wine tradition, but unexploited terroirs and unexploited fine wine opportunities. And,
no, for sure.
This is what you identified in Australia, and it's a lot of work. And
Australia is a big country as well, and you know, not every region, I guess, like in anywhere else in the world, works in harmony together. Some regions charge on ahead and have a greater reputation than others. Whereas what I'm trying to do is really trying to bring the country's reputation up together as one unit to take to the world and go, well, if I was to give you 3 wines or 4 wines today to show you what Australia can really do, not saying that my wines are the best, but to show you the potential of what Australia's future looks like, these are the wines that we produce and that we really interpret Australia at its highest pinnacle, but also can challenge, you know, what others are doing in that category.
How did you end up in Macau? Because you're doing wine in Australia.
Complete accident. My wife was offered a job here over 10 years ago, and you know, we always had the view that she would do the job and we would go back to Hong Kong after she'd finished the job. And then one thing happened, we had a child, and then we realized that, you know, Macau was a nicer place to raise young children because space is a scarcity thing in Hong Kong. But also going back to Australia, we weren't ready for that yet. So I was happy to continue to go back and forth. And obviously with winemaking, it's seasonal, so I could manage that. And I also really believe that to be competitive and to be relevant in the market, you need to be in the market more often. So we decided that, you know, we needed to be within the region. But Macau has been so good to us. We've been so lucky in so many different ways that it's given us a home away from home, a home that's really uniquely ours. Obviously friends, new opportunities, and it's a cool city. It's a really small. It's got lots of tourists that come through. You know, you can have amazing dining experiences. You know, for example, here at Wymn, there's an amazing steakhouse, SW, which is awesome. And then you go to where we're going for lunch later, Chef Tam's Seasons, which is like a top 2-star Michelin restaurant. That there's so many options, and you can go cheap and cheerful as well, like your local noodle shop, or you can go to other Cantonese local cuisine. And then what's the most unique thing about here is the Portuguese influence. So obviously everyone raves about the nata egg tarts. That's one side. But there's plenty of other kinds of Portuguese cuisines here as well, from casual down by the Coloane beach through to something slightly more fancy. So from an eating and drinking destination, it's really cool. And if you want to buy Portuguese wines, you can buy it here cheap, and there's an abundance of it. You go to the supermarket, it's like, wow, Portuguese wine selection, this is amazing.
Yeah, I really don't know Macau. Like I've been here for 2 hours, so you know I have the image of this casino city, just having like resorts and resorts next to each other. But so I can't wait to discover.
Get to the historical sites. I mean, they're all UNESCO historical sites, so like you can really see, you know, 400 years of Portuguese influence. I mean, the colonization, you know, when we or the influence of Portuguese goes back much further than Hong Kong. It was one of the first regions in Asia that was colonized by a European country. So it's a very deep, long-rooted history. It's very ingrained, and they've retained it, and they've restored it. And so I applaud Macau for keeping that level of connection to its past.
So you're doing wine in Australia, but earlier you mentioned that your experience in Barolo was one of the greatest wine experience that you had in your life. Do you ever want to go back to Italy or to like Europe to do the same thing you're doing in Australia to this place?
Yeah, so I've made wines and worked with a few other wineries as well in Italy. And also spent some time in France with a producer called Master de Mascasac in Languedoc.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed my vintage stint there because they produce really unique terroir-driven and multi-variety style wines. So very open-minded and completely off the radar from like the very traditional Appellation wines from other parts of France. So it was really interesting to hear their story as well, from a family story through to the wines they produce. And so I was really inspired by that and the family and what they do. So I've done other winemaking stints there, and I've obviously returned to Vietti and worked in Barolo, and I continue to remain very close friends with the family, and have visited, of course, as well. And then I just now have no desire really to go make wines in lots of countries and places around the world. I feel like I've kind of come full circle, and I've got a lifetime's more of work that I want to do with the Eddie McDougall wines. I've bought and sold a vineyard and winery in New Zealand that we bought in 2018 and we sold in 2023, which was called Gladstone Vineyard. And that was a really unique experience to be really deeply ingrained in the New Zealand wine production. I've subsequently made wine in Ningxia in 2017. I helped out with a winery called Silver Heights. They wanted some help to make the rosé and also the Chardonnay, which actually proudly that Chardonnay was the first white wine Chardonnay that was presented to President Macron by Xi Jinping back then. And that was really cool to see that wine from Silver Heights being presented. Going, wow, I remember I was part of that production process. I remember pressing that particular basket press with the juice coming out. And I go back to my photos on my phone. I was like, oh, that's the grape that did a selfie with a bunch of grapes that was in that bottle. So I think I've seen a lot now, and I'm really enjoying Australian wine and what Australia can do. So yeah.
Is there anything? So you have like also a career in the media industry. So we mentioned it with the Flying Winemaker. So basically, you were also going places to places, bringing with you, I guess, a crew, cameras and stuff.
Yeah.
Showing this. Media is critical to the wine industry because it's one of the interface with the end consumer. So when you want to discover wine, either you go to a restaurant, you hope to have a sommelier and he tells you the story of what you're drinking, or you're trying to like educate yourself or read about wine or stuff like that, and then you go buy something.
Yeah.
How have you seen this like media landscape evolve in the wine industry, and like how do you see its place today?
It's interesting. The media landscape in wine is quite noisy. There's a lot out there now because there's a lot of KOLs who just love to take photos and, lifestyle KOLs, which is, look, it's promoting wine. I think they have a part in what's in the ecosystem. And also consumption of media is so fast these days that it's changed a lot, and people are so much more knowledgeable these days when it comes to buying wine or chasing a review or getting the right food pairing or getting the technical notes. So there's a lot more access already available. So I think the ones that are really making an impact, really deep dive more, right? And look behind, some of these things, because a lot of it now is just really short, bite-sized, quick. And what you're doing with, for example, this podcast and doing some long form stuff, I think it's incredibly valuable, because you actually get to a point where you can actually get really to the deeper root of the problem or the opportunity or the the topic itself. So it's become a point where I think the ones with more authority focus on long form, whereas the other ones, I feel, the short form ones, they'll disappear very quickly. Whether it's the account or the influencer or the following, people's attention span for them don't stick. They're not as sticky. And you can obviously see, right, long form, you have to have more research, you have to have more authority, you have to have
more production, more time.
More time. So it's people will see value in that. Production value is important to showcase and show off in that regard. But the other side is obviously the people that are presenting. There are many master of wines there who are great communicators. There are many who are not good communicators. There are people who are not master of wines who are even better communicators than the master of wines. So it is case by case these days. But wine is very simple in the sense that there's a history to it, which is not going to change unless someone finds something that's so unique. Wine is made with grapes. Well, the ones that we're talking about are made with grapes. It's still made with yeast. The process is the same. It hasn't evolved in terms of that core fermentation change. There are obviously some philosophies and some methods that reshape the wines as it moves through its élevage periods. But I think the only things that are starting to become more unique is the place of consumption, the how and where you consume the wines. It could be in the airplane, it could be here at Wynn Palace, it could be in a picnic, it could be, camping with your friends. It's those moments that are quite important. And I think people need to be educated on the fact that wine can be consumed in more moments and in more scenarios and in more locations. It's not restricted to the stem glass, the table, the dining setting, the sommelier pouring. You can enjoy wine in many categories and many styles in many settings. So I think that's part of the education process, and that will come, I think.
And part of the job of people making wine as well, to make it either design it to be accessible to these moments in the shape of consumption or what's inside the bottle or the...
You can still drink fine wine, not in a fine dining restaurant.
You can drink it everywhere.
You can drink it on your sofa, enjoying it with some peanuts sitting across the table from your best friend or a relative, and engaging in a conversation about wine.
I think you even enjoy wine more in the simplest settings.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Totally. Look, of course, wine will improve with types of glassware. Wine will improve with decanting. Wine will improve with some work that's applied to the service and whatever. But the moments are very important to capture, right?
I have one last question before the conclusion. Is you talked about rugby in your introduction. It's a very important part of your life. If you could give us the few lessons you had from rugby that you then applied to your career, your life in general, what would it be?
There's quite a few. I think when you get tackled and it hurts, you get up and go again. Rugby's game are made of 80 minutes, and get up and go again and shake it off and get into the next situation or the next contact point. And that builds resilience. It builds almost a mindset of when people say no to you, you get more motivated to get back up and go again. Even if you get no 10 times, you get up and go again until you get to the finish line or until you get to the end of the match. That's really important. Everyone has a job in life is another lesson I learned from rugby. Everyone has a job on the pitch. Rugby is a very technical game, very specialist positions, very specialist jobs. And I think if you can master one thing, that's already incredible. If you try and master everything, you'll just be okay at lots of things. For me, as I've gotten older and become more wise, I guess, I've realized that one of the things that I was good at in rugby was throwing the throwing the ball in the line out. And I was so accurate. And I got picked in the teams because I knew that I could throw the ball accurately 99% of the time. And it would land in the right spot to the right player, and we would win the ball every time. But that took persistence, repetition. And I apply that with wine, wine tasting and calibrating my palate for judging or for winemaking. It's about repetition. And the discipline, the repetition is so important. And so that gave me that as well. And obviously as a team sport, you have to work with people, right? Respect each other's job, your trust. You're not there to complain. You're there to empower, and I take that as a thing that I use for my family, for my wife, my colleagues, business partners, shareholders. I'm merely there to do a job to get everyone to a better place.
Yeah, rugby is really a nice sport. So I come from the north of France, so it's not the place where you have the most rugby teams. We basically have no teams. Like the league in France is a top 14, and we have 0 teams from the north of France. Like it's just mainly south and southwest of France.
There's a lot from Toulouse and Bordeaux,
Toulon, Bordeaux, Perpignan, all that. But actually, it's the type of sports I would love my children to play. Like, I would really love them to play rugby. I think it's
nice good. I think for girls and boys, right? I've got 2 boys, and they love the sport as much as I loved it. They make great friends from it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's
And it's funny because I talked to my little brother about it. Like we mentioned this topic like that, and he said the same to me. He was like, "Yeah, I would love my children to play rugby one day." So I guess it's just one sport.
Yeah.
So sorry to break it to your mind. One last thing we haven't talked about before jumping to the conclusion is actually the wine world we are having right now.
Okay.
So you selected this white wine. We've actually just been sipping it a little bit through the interview. But can you tell us a bit more about what it is? And
yeah, it's a wine from Sicily, so if Italy, Planeta. So in fact, the bottle's behind us. It's gonna reach over and grab it. So you can see what it is. Have you had this before?
No, never.
Okay, so it's a Sicilian Chardonnay, 2023. These guys are real legends when it comes to Sicilian wine. And I thought, we'd give something different a go, where a bit of texture. Obviously, it's pre-lunchtime, and we just need, this is like our morning tea. So it's obviously got some texture to it, but obviously with Sicilian wines, there's of that mineral component, which is quite important as well.
It's been amazing. I've been sipping it. The tea is actually a good analogy because you can feel a bit of infusion around it, like in the texture, in how the flavors express. So it's actually a good analogy. Could be tea.
I've always loved wines from Sicily, and I just find them refreshing. And I think that's also one of the things that is important for my winemaking philosophy, is that whether it's red, white, sparkling, sweet, whatever, they need to be refreshing. You need to have that feeling where you've had a sip, you feel like you want to come back for another one because it's just so refreshing. And even this has got a little bit of texture to it, and I believe it's got that sort of slight sort of natural wine sort of stylistic direction to it as well. It's still really refreshing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the little acidity also that brings it. Eddie, thank you very much for all of this. We've talked about a lot of topic. I'm super happy with this interview. I learned a lot, and it's a real inspiring journey to us in the wine industry. I still have 3 last questions. The first one is: do you have a book recommendation about wine?
Oh, about wine, okay.
Or in general in life, if
I've got okay.
You can do 2.
Well, I do have so wine book recommendation. There's actually a catalogue of books by a master of wine called Andrew Caillard, who I think is one of the most legendary authorities on Australian wine. He's produced a set of books called The Australian Arc, which is a 3-volume set based on the history of Australian wine, the people of Australian wine. It is the most comprehensive set of Australian wine literature in the world to date. It's incredible. It's a lifetime of work for this man. I have so much respect for Andrew, and it's incredible to have this all documented in one place. It goes all the way up until, I believe, the point of Queen Elizabeth's passing. So it's quite it's quite recent. So only two or 3 years ago, when it was released, or when he finished publishing and releasing it. So that to me is a great reference point if you're really trying to deep dive into Australian wine and where it came from and how it started and who was behind many things that got it to where it is today, and the ups and downs and the twists and turns around Australian wine industry. The other one I have is probably more of a business book, which myself and my group of entrepreneurial friends are reading right now. It's called 10X is Better Than 2X.
That's true.
It's a very, very cool book that tells you a lot of lessons about how you prioritize your life, your business priorities, your mindset, the way that you think to achieve, a 10X outcome in everything that you do. And that to me is something that I've really embraced, I guess, for 2026 as well, is that, I want to try and 10X life in that, whether it's my personal life with family or business life or the awards or the winemaking side of things. It's all about creating this 10X goal.
We'll definitely read it. Then do you have a recent wine you tasted and you love?
I drink a lot of wine, as you can probably imagine. I still love Barolo, and Barolo to me is the one that always gets me back to this fuzzy place. So I've been collecting a wine by a lady called Chiara Boschis, and I drank recently her 2013 Canubi, which is a Barolo, a Cru Barolo, and just, amazing.
We'll try to find a bottle.
It's
somewhere.
absolutely amazing. So 2013 Chiara Boschis Canubi.
And finally, who is the next person we should interview?
Gosh, there are so many. There are so many people. Does it have to be restricted to someone that's in the region, or? No,
honestly, now you can do worldwide, because at the beginning we were only doing it in France, but now we're traveling. So
okay. If I had to interview someone, and I think I've kind of already alluded to who I think is really a great communicator, is Andrew Kayard, Master of Wine. He's a legend. He really is a legend, and I think his story needs to be told, and I think he's got some great stories for your listeners as well, because he's seen a lot, been in the wine industry for a long time, and is incredibly well respected globally, but is one of the legends in the Australian wine industry. So I'd probably say Andrew Kayard.
It would be amazing. Actually, I don't know enough about Australian wine, and I think I suffer from something is that I've never been in Australia, and so I've seen the maps, I've read the stuff, but when you don't experience the place, I feel it's super hard to really appropriate it and to actually feel it. And on the other hand, like Burgundy or Bordeaux, I won't say I know it like my pocket, but I know the places, I know how it's shaped, where things are, and so I really understand wine more. And I think traveling to the places make you grow in your wine experience. So
100%.
It's a good way to get more into Australian wine, and I think we'll try to make it in Australia.
It's a beautiful country. So Andrew is actually coming to Macau.
We can do it in Macau. It's less romantic than Australia.
No, but he's coming here to judge at the awards.
Yeah.
So he'll be here between the 6th and the 11th of March.
Can be a good moment to try to meet.
I'm sure the PR team here would be able to set it up properly for you again if you wanted to interview him.
100%.
He'd be a great person to talk to.
100%. So we'll go to Australia after. We'll come back to Macau.
Yeah. No, go.
Before.
After you've spoken to him, you'll want to go to Australia. And in fact, he's the person that will connect you to all the places you want to go.
Yeah,
as well.
That's a good thing. Thank you very much, Eddie, for everything. It was an amazing interview. Thank you for welcoming us here at Wynn Palace.
No, it's a
in Macau.
pleasure. It's obviously a beautiful setting.
It's a beautiful beautiful settings, and I guess for a first time in Macau, it's the perfect place to be.
Yes, yes, it is a beautiful place and a great introduction to what's to come.
Exactly. Thanks again. For everyone watching, thank you very much for being here, watching or listening, actually. If you're still here, it means that you absolutely enjoyed this interview. So don't forget to share it to at least 2 people and to subscribe. Go see what Eddie is doing, the awards, the wine. You will find all the links in description. I see you soon. Eddie, thanks again. And have an amazing journey in this.
No, thank you. Thanks for inviting me. It's great, and I've loved watching the other episodes and listening to the other ones in the car when I'm driving around. So it's been great.
It's a good moment to listen to it.
In fact, a lot of my friends are on it, so I'm getting jealous for not being on it.
Thanks again, Eddie.
Cheers.
Bye bye, guys.
Bye bye.
Great.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot. It's amazing.
We could have talked for 5 hours, I think.